Yeah. The scriptures of the Western religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and the scriptures of the Hindus, the Vedas, and other works, right? In the West, we seem to have a very definite idea about who God is. Not what, but who. And I don't just mean visually, okay? If you think about one of the major components, certainly of Judaism and Christianity, and the same kind of attitude adheres among Muslims, right? We think, and I say we, right, Westerners think that they know God so well that they know what He wants for us. And they know it with a great measure of certainty. Thou shalt, right, do this. Thou shalt not do that. That's how intimately we understand the will of the divine. Still, it is left to us to figure out, how that is supposed to work itself out in our everyday lives, and many is the debate that has occurred in will on that score. But you may get a little bit of that kind of attitude, right? I think of it, here's my English major showing, okay? But I think of the Western scriptures as being written in the declarative mode, right? This is the truth. This is the truth, right? To the extent that on occasion it switches over into the imperative mode. You shall do this. You shall not do that, right? And of course you get other attitudes, but I think that is something of the tenor. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. Some of you know better than I do, right? In the scriptures of Hinduism, and somewhat as well in the scriptures of Buddhism, and certainly in the scriptures of Taoism, as we shall see in a couple of weeks, what you find is more the interrogative mode. Instead of this is the truth, it seems to be more, what is the truth? Not this is who God is and this is what He wants, but who is the divine? What is the divine? It strikes me as more pondersome, a more of a wondering, right? Which in some ways might indicate a measure of security. Now, if life is crazy and out of control and you're scared, what do you usually look for? Somebody needs to tell us what to do, right? You think about those weeks and months after 9/11. We wanted the government to step up, help us out here. We're hurting, right? We're scared. What do? And that's what the government did, right? That's what governments do. And now, of course, the situation has changed and we have some time to think. And one of the things we get to think about is those weeks and months after 9/11. And were we doing the right thing? And did we ask the government for the right thing, right? If you know anything about the debate about, we lost some right to privacy during those times, and now we're beginning to see the ramifications of those measures that were taken. The whole use of drones, all of these different issues, and I know I'm chasing a rabbit here, but I think it's an important one. Happens to be a political rabbit. How can you talk about religion without talking about politics? I apologize to my grandmother one more time. The two things she told me never to talk about in polite company. And here I am making a living at it, right? Oh, life is strange. And beautifully so. The interrogative mode, it seems to me that wondering could be considered something of a luxury. Life's got to have a little bit of order and a sense of security to it for us to be able to sit down and really think and ponder and ponder. Now, again, that is just a radical generalization, but if you do look into, and I hope that you will, the Vedas, particularly the Rig Veda, again, the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, I wonder, I'd be interested to know if you think I'm onto something there. Now, there's another thing that happens. As time goes on. And you don't see it in the early scriptures of Hinduism, but it grows as time goes on. It's this notion, again, I picture it with those concentric circles, right? That Brahman is, let me borrow a term from Paul Tillich, okay? German theologian, philosopher. Being itself, not a being, right? Even with a capital B, right? But being itself. Whatever is a part of the divine, right? Including you and me and everything else. You see this notion coming to the fore in Indian thought. And there's a moment in the Upanishads in particular when a brief, deceptively simple statement is made. And again, this is somewhat idiosyncratic, but I'm not the only one who thinks it. If you could identify the heart of Hinduism, I think it would be this. You want to learn a little Sanskrit? It won't hurt you. Tat Tavam Asi. Tat Tavam Asi. Can I hear you say it? Tat Tavam Asi. Translated, that means, well, literally, that you are. That you are. In other words, you are that. Well, you are what? You are what? You are Brahman. You, your individual soul, your Atman, if you will, right? That's the little circle. Are Brahman, the big circle. One and the same, right? One and the same. And if the life of a Hindu could be defined, and we're not just talking about one life here, right? The whole reincarnation thing comes in here, right? Over these many lives. Your job, if you will, your assignment, if you choose to take it, right, is slowly but surely to dissipate the boundary between your circle and the circle of the divine. So that the oneness you already have, right, but because of the illusions of life and because of the karmic muck that we mentioned last week, right, that accrues on us as we do bad things and fail to do good things, right, as you straighten that out, as you lose that, as it dissipates, right, in your life, in your lives, you come to experience who you have been all along. From your very first life, I suppose is the lowest life form, and I'm not sure, what would be an amoeba? Well, let's go even farther than that, right? We in the West think of life in terms of the animate and the inanimate, right? That's our construction of it. But here, if all things are animate, maybe we start out as a sand pebble. I'm not sure how you would be a good sand pebble to come back as, a higher life form. Maybe stay out of people's shoes. I don't know, right? But there's that moment when it is actually said, Tat Tavam Asi, you are that. And, where I stand, that is such a radical notion to consider. That you yourself always have been, always will be Brahman. You're divine, right? You're divine. And so how do we live into that? How do we live into that? And that's one of the major questions addressed by the Hindu religious tradition, as it is in every single one of the religious traditions. In other words, not only who are we, where did we come from, where are we going, but the ethical question arises. What do we do in the meantime? How do we live a good life? How do we live our own divinity, if you will? We can't cover all 330 million gods and goddesses today. But that's okay. Hinduism is a very patient religious tradition. You have many lifetimes to get that done. But it does suggest that you get busy, okay? What I'll do today is concentrate on 3 and especially on 2 of those gods and goddesses. Now, again, Dr. Alako is a specialist, particularly in Hindu goddesses, right? Just to keep from stepping into her territory, I'm sure she wouldn't mind. I'm going to concentrate on some of the male depictions of the divine. But there are 3 who hold a great deal of significance for Hindus, and they're known as the Smṛti. The Smṛti, T-R-I-M-U-R-T-I, right? And that first syllable gives you a clue, the Smṛti, right? We have a few words in English that start with T-R-I. Can you name one for me? Triangle, there you go. Triad, right? Yeah, we're in the triad region. And it implies what? 3ness, yes. The 3 of the main gods of Hinduism would be Brahma, not Brahman, right? But Brahma, you just drop the N off the N, B-R-A-H-M-A, right? Brahma, Shiva, and you see this spelled a couple of different ways. It's all transliterated, so pick one and go with it. Either S-I-V-A or S-H-I-V-A. You also hear it pronounced in different ways, Shiva. And Vishnu, V-I-S-H-N-U, V-I-S-H-N-U, Vishnu, for those of you taking notes. Brahma is understood to be the creator god who brings the universe into being. And then Vishnu steps in and takes over. He is the god of maintenance, if you will. He keeps the universe going for as long as it does. And then when its time is up, he hands it over to Shiva, and Shiva steps in. Shiva is known, well, in many different ways, but one of his major roles is the destroyer god, right? To destroy the universe. Are these good gods? Would a good God destroy the universe? Maybe. Well, let's look at a couple other religious traditions. Let's bring it home for the moment, I assume for most of you. Does the Christian God create the heavens and the earth? But of course. Does he also destroy the universe in the end? Oh, yeah. Is he considered to be a good guy? Oh, yeah, right? Oh, yeah. But one of the things that is fascinating to me about this story, this myth, if you will, right? Again, no value judgment about truth or non-truth, this religious story about how the universe came to be, right? And you get an arc, right? The creation, the maintenance, the destruction. Well, in the Western religions, that's pretty much the end of the story, isn't it? I mean, what you get after that is, you're dancing in robes and playing harps, right, on the clouds. Forever and ever, amen. Not so here. Not so here. That's not the end of the story. If anything, it's really just the beginning. Because once Shiva has finished his work, Brahma steps back up and recreates the universe. Vishnu remaintains the universe. Eventually, Shiva will destroy that universe once again, only to have the cycle repeat and repeat, rinse and repeat, right? So it seems as if not only do individual souls or atmans